Hi, everybody. I'm Toon from FinTech Belgium. We have Caroline, who's just hidden herself. She was a part of the session too. She's actually in the control room to make sure that we can stream this session on tools. And we have Cédric and Peter with us, who will give their presentations in a minute. As all of you, we're figuring out how this whole new webinar tool set is going to work. And this session is all about how did we within our companies try in the past and currently to live through the COVID times and to offer teams the right tooling to facilitate the working from home wherever that is possible. And so we have three short presentations. We want to make it interactive, and I said we're gonna do the screen sharing, each of us, of what we exactly want to present. So I'm gonna be the first for that. It's not always, well, we're going right into an internal screen. And here, normally, I hope you can see my presentation. So organizational tools. So myself, I spent most of my time in a fintech called data.be, sharing company data to fintechs and banks and companies who need financial information. I'm also very lucky to be part of a non-profit called Open Knowledge Belgium, where we already work remote and where we had a fantastic remote session on strategy last week. So I will share some of the findings we had there. And then I'm part of a co-working called Betacowork, where we're heavily impacted, of course, also by the whole COVID epidemic, because the employee that worked there is not, of course, for safety reasons in this office, and everybody is wisely working from home, the co-workers, so we get impacted there too. So for those of you who have a business for which you always needed to be locally in one spot, we understand this is a very tough time. Closer look at digital collaboration toolkits. There's different suites that you can go for. The real collaboration, there's the video conferencing. We're all getting acquainted with that faster than we want to. I hope that you have been in less video conferencing than myself, because I find it an extremely tiring process, and this week has been hell. And we all clearly still need to find the right balance between finding the new tools and not resorting to video conferencing instead of others. Project management, digital canvas, automation, and some more resources. So I will really go very, very quickly through this one. Just to sort of open the floor for the two speakers who are up next. Many of you know Slack. Their CEO just did a long tweet storm, and immediately their share prices went up double digits, explaining how strong the user growth has been for Slack. Many teams have been using this for many years. Direct messaging, file sharing, some video conferencing is even built in. There's a free version, but most companies are on the paid one. Then, of course, there's Microsoft. They have a lot of Office apps that are trying to integrate to some extent. Some work very well in good settings. Others have a bit more difficulty in figuring out the difference between Skype for Business, Teams, and all those tools that are now being more and more interlinked as part of Office 365. There's Podio. All of them, or most of them, also integrate with the usual Dropbox, Google Drives, Evernote, Zendesk, and so on. So that's, I would say, one stack. Second one, video conferencing. Here we are, Google Hangouts, I would say, and Skype. Those are the ones we know from the past. Zoom, a very, very clear runner-up and being used more and more. And I don't want to count the number of invitations for Zoom meetings that I didn't even manage to attend. Microsoft Teams, whereby, be careful, this is free up to 4 users. This is something that we experienced over the last weeks, that you use a tool to reach out to 1 or 2 persons to explain how will the crisis affect this and how we're going to manage things together in a remote setting. But then when the 5th person joins, you see, we have to pay. This is no longer possible. In that case, Jitsi is an open source platform that I really liked using. Currently, you're watching a Livestorm, which is a webinar platform, which is really, really exciting. We did a session last week, and this week, I hope that we are even going to get better and better at it. Then, looking at other tools, Trello. If you're used of having your drag and drop cards and boards within the team to make sure that everybody is onto the same thing and have a very short visual way to know what you're doing and delegating tasks and getting feedback. It also helps for you weekly sprints to see what has been done. There's a nice free version, and it nicely integrates with plenty of other platforms. There's Asana. There's Monday.com. Those are all tools that we see getting a lot of traction during this period. Milanote, sorry, another one, up to 100 notes for free. You can easily share what you found with your team. One that I really liked last Friday for the strategy session is like replacing these creative sessions where you're with the whole team and you can read the room and you can like write on your post-its and put them on a wall and stack them together and see what's happening. You can also do this in a free interactive way with a platform like Miro, again, free up to 5 users. If you're a bigger company or organization, you're gonna have to get some cash out to continue using the collaboration tools there. But a really, really nice experience to use that. Everybody in that session was new to this, or most of them were really new to this, including myself, and I found it very intuitive how that works. Notion, they've been around for a while, free version, also very nice to work with. From other tools, Stripe, everything payment related, invoicing, you can nicely integrate that also with Zoho. There's Help Scout for inbound, user.com to do, I would say, inbound marketing combined with customer support, Zapier to hook it all together through APIs. So really, really nice tool sets. I'm sure we're going to get into more of those in a minute. So to, I would say, wrap this up, collaboration backup tools, Dropbox, Google Drive, WeTransfer, Basecamp, Evernote, I would say the classics. Very important, and one that I really struggle with is distraction blocking tools. I mean, I struggle with the distraction of getting so much inbound through all the new platforms, and then time tracking tools that have been around for a while, Rescue Time, Harvest, Clocky, Toggle, and so on. So I would say there's some really good blogs out there with links that can also help you in this respect. And I hope that this very, very short, fast introduction is opening the floor for Peter, who's next. He's from The Glue, and while I close my screen and we try to gain back into the right window to join the session. And if somebody wants to kick me out, you can kick me out. So there we go. Peter, floor is yours.
Great.
I hope there's not too much overlap with what you're going to tell here. I know it was a roller coaster of tools, but so go ahead. Okay. Tell us how you, in your role and your company, are dealing with this.
Great. Okay. First of all, I will share my screen. Right, you should be seeing the presentation now, right?
Great, we see it, yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. So hi everybody, my name is Peter Wellens. I'm the CCO over at The Glue. What we do at The Glue in one sentence is we build platforms for the financial world, mostly to support new or existing ecosystems. But today it's not really important what The Glue does. It's mostly important, you know, what we are and who we are and how we are working together. The advantage of your introduction, Toon, is that most people now, if they weren't already, are caught up about the type of tools that are out there. So we can, go into some more subtle, explanations here. These are the 6 tools you see on the screen that are at the moment keeping us up and running at The Glue. We're a team of 25 experts who work in Belgium, and we have about the same amount working from Poland as well. So you could say that for about 40% of the time we were already working remotely, which was an advantage. But now that we have gone 100%, I've started to notice, the subtle differences in how we use these tools. And first off, so Slack, which most of you might know, it really has become our digital office, in the sense that most of the, just the social talk, jokes, more informal conversations are all happening on Slack, and we naturally gravitated towards that tool for everything that's, let's say, not super formal or not super related directly to clients. So if you're a company who is wondering about what kind of tool would I use to just, cement or glue all of our normal social interactions together, I would highly recommend Slack, because it makes it very easy and it's a very light and low threshold tool to use, even for people who haven't been working online at all, or people who might even still struggle with WhatsApp. Slack is a very easy to jump into tool, so I would highly recommend it, as we do it here at The Glue. On the other side of that spectrum, you have Outlook, right? Which here on the slide I say we use to talk to the world. So everything that's not colleague to colleague is Outlook, is our email, presentations to clients, formal agreements, invitations, stuff like that. So this also includes the calendar. We kind of try to respect that that separation quite intensively. So we have an unwritten rule of not sending too many emails colleague to colleague, because that way we, when we lose something or we want to check back on something, we mostly know where to find it. In order to track not the past but the future, so our tasks, what we are going to do, we have two tools that we use quite intensively. For everything that's sales, we use the SalesFlare CRM, which we highly recommend if you're a team between 2 and 15 people. I think in that size it's unbeatable, and we've used quite a lot of them. Excuse me, I just noticed that there was a pop-up, so sorry, okay, my bad. So where was I? Yeah, SalesFlare, a very good CRM for medium to large teams. And for all other tasks, we use Jira, which is basically like Trello, but a little bit more IT focused. Finally, to do teleconferences, Toon already gave some examples, but we use Teams quite intensively for that. And it works well, even with larger groups. And then to keep track of all of our files, we used to work with Dropbox, we used to work with Google Drive, but now lately we have decided to work with SharePoint, also in the Microsoft suite. Me personally, I'm not the biggest fan, but after a couple of weeks, and especially now with the quarantine, we have all learned to work with it very efficiently. So it really, it does the job once you're used to it. All right, the second part of the presentation is some of the practices that we have found to be extremely useful in these times. And I'm going to kick in some open doors here. So forgive me in advance. The point of this slide is not to tell you how to work, because I think a lot of you already do this, but it's to tell you, how in our organization specifically, some focus has changed. And so the first thing is to always have a master of ceremony whenever you have a call or a teleconference with more than 4 people. So basically what Toon is doing here for us today. A very concrete example, last week we had a presentation of about 10 people. And at our side, we simply decided that one of us, in this case me, would be the one speaking for our company and also appointing when somebody else would speak. It sounds a little bit fascist when I say it out loud like that, but it really, really worked very well because if you know your team well, you can mostly, evaluate when somebody is the right person to answer a question. And it kept things very clean, without interruptions, without 3 or 4 people trying to talk or start a sentence at the same time. And we noticed that our approach also inspired the client to adopt the same way of working. And we really got to that meeting very effectively with very clear next steps. So I would recommend doing it always whenever you have more than 4 people present for a digital meeting. And the second thing is the concept of SMART goals. I warned you, we're kicking in open doors here, but in these times of low visibility, you don't really see each other. It's good to make sure that whatever task or whatever appointment you make with your clients or with your colleagues is that they're very specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. And especially the latter is very important, because when you see each other, it's easy to just knock somebody on the shoulder and say, hey, how about that presentation, or how about that email? Did you have a time to think about it? And oh yeah, it's solved in a couple of minutes. But right here, it's a little harder. You don't see each other, you might forget things. So it's good to use these apps like a good CRM or Jira, and to make sure that there's a time limit, a deadline on every task or every appointment that you do. And the last one you see is the golden circle, right? The why, how, what. And the reason I put that one up there is because what we are starting to notice is that the amount of meetings that we have goes down slightly, but the reason why we have them become clearer and clearer. I think we all agree that in some sense, there are meetings where you think like, what am I doing here? Why should I be here? And you're just there because they get called. But now with every meeting being just as important, online as offline, I feel like it's a good exercise to really think, should I be in this meeting? What do we want to attain? So thinking about why we do what we do has become a lot more important, and I think our efficiency has gone up quite a bit in terms of meetings because of that. All right. Final part of something I wanted to talk to you about is a number of anecdotes, because it doesn't always have to be serious and a bunch of logos on the slide. I asked my team for a number of stories about their lockdown experience so far in working from home. And the first story is about our office dog, which you see on the left. It's Remus. And the reason we're showing him is because I think he's the biggest winner of this entire crisis. He's never been so happy because there are always people at home. So that's just to say that wherever there are losers, there are certainly also winners. The second story is about noise cancelling headphones, hence that logo. We had a story about somebody who was so immersed in his homework, wearing noise cancelling headphones, that that he got into a fight with his wife, because apparently she had been yelling at him for a couple of minutes and thought he was ignoring him. So that's one of the downsides of working, always stay aware of your surroundings. And the final one is pet related as well. You see the cat. It's not an actual picture of the cat, but our CTO is working at home, and he has a very how should I say it, charismatic cat, who has so far has a record of 2 conference calls that have been shut down because she wanted attention and she just jumped on top of the keyboard. So people, if you have cats at home, be aware that you don't lose out on a client or an important meeting because of that.
Very good. And on the same subject, yesterday we did prepare this webinar, and we found out that when you're a significant other at home, your wife wants to make a video call, it drops your line, right? So she gets higher priority than you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So yesterday when we did the dry run, my wife got into a conference call and I just got kicked out. So now she's taking care of that.
Okay, well, very good. But so it also means that part of all the other arrangements we need to make in our households, we need to start fighting for the bandwidth and make agreements on who gets priority for which type of video call, right? So that's we're still in that phase of the of this working. Without further ado, we're going to do Q&A at the very end. If you have questions for any of the speakers, do see that on the right side of your screen. You can actually chat, and we'll also try to make it more interactive with some polls. We're now going to go a little bit more deeply, together with Cédric from Digiteal, into how his FinTech is using digital tools to not just survive this COVID period, but also being qualified by the National Bank with a license as under the PSD2 regulation, and how he is resilient. So while he's firing up his presentation, and there we are, you can put it full screen. We are passing the full focus of this webinar to you, Cédric. So I would say the screen is all yours.
Yeah, hello. I hope all of you are safe at home and healthy. That was most important for the moment. I'm trying to get it full screen, but it doesn't want to.
So normally I would say it's the same setting, but so I can see that Firefox prevented this from opening pop-up windows. So something is, a warning is there. If you can't put it there, yeah.
Sorry about that.
Maybe give it one more try if we can do it full screen. And otherwise, we're just gonna wing it this way. We're all hanging in there with our tool sets.
Yeah. Okay. So my name is Cédric Nève. I'm the founder and CEO of Digiteal. My personal experience for remote work has been, in fact, well, I started working in 1999. Sorry, I have a big echo, so that's why it's a bit comfy. Do it like that. So I've been working since 1999, and I've always used a laptop. So never a workstation. So that has been the beginning of already being cutting the cord. I already in 2002, I was the first member of my company to ask to work remotely. So I did 9 months of remote work, and they had to prepare a specific work contract because there were no remote or teleworking contracts back then, or at least it wasn't very common. So that's what I did already in 2002. We, of course, in our company had company servers on premises and with access to VPN. So that was already in 1999. And we were using cloud-based services since 2006. So you see, it's not a new thing, remote work. A lot of us have been doing it since quite some time. And when we launched Digiteal in 2015, of course, it was obvious for us that we were going to use the same tools, so VPNs to access our on-premises servers and cloud services since day one. Maybe a little explanation of what we're doing inside Digiteal so that you see where we're coming from. We're a team of 8, of course, all working from home now and providing e-invoicing and e-payment services. And while providing those services, we, of course, we need to be recognized by the National Bank of Belgium, since we're, I wouldn't say playing, but managing people's money and third-party money. So it's important that this money stays safe. And that's my first point here. It's about resilience. And the National Bank of Belgium makes it very clear, as the EBA, that financial institutions need to be resilient. For that, they have a lot of checks that they impose on us, and that for very good reasons. For example, they ask us, of course, to have a high level of security in our IT environment. They also ask us for own fund requirements, making this more financially secure. They ask us to also manage our risks and to know which are the risky parts of our business, and to have mitigation solutions or strategies in order to avoid those risks. And then part of those risks are linked to suppliers. So there also we have to look into those suppliers and make sure that we have backup plans. And the backup plans goes for suppliers, but also for the roles inside a company. I'm going to go back to that a bit later on. The purpose of all those checks is to make sure that the third-party funds that we manipulate are secure. You wouldn't want your bank to say that, oh, sorry, we just lost the few millions that you had on your account. So instead of doing that, we make sure that this money is secure. The second reason is to have a level playing field. So if we would have financial institutions that would be cowboys and some obedient companies that would play by the book, it wouldn't be very fair to all of them. And so that's another reason why it's important to have those ground rules that everyone respects. And the last part is the stability of the financial system. So it's one thing to lose your money. It's another thing to lose faith in the financial system, in the banks, and that everyone would try to go back to cash and or worse, barter. So it's also important that all the tools that are built are stable and contribute to this financial stability. About COVID-19, so did we have that in our risk management sheets? Did we plan for it? Well, no, not specifically, at least. But as a financial institution, we need to be ready, and we were, thanks to this preparation imposed on us by the National Bank of Belgium. Another aspect that is very important for us, not yet the tools. Last week, the webinar was about organization. And I think that before tools, it's very important indeed to talk about organization. What we do in Digiteal is we have a set of values, trust, transparency, wholeness, and empowerment, that come from a book that Frédéric Laloux wrote. You might have some time now, some extra time. So if you didn't read it yet, I advise you to read it. And he's talking there about teal management. And the teal there, in fact, is the reason why we're called Digiteal. So it's very important for us. And I'm going to emphasize this by giving you a few examples of why this is so important. The first reason, trust. If you're going to work remotely, and before you were relying on looking over the shoulder of your colleagues to know what they were doing because you weren't trusting them, it's going to be a lot harder to do that when doing remote work. So trust is very important. You must trust your colleagues that they're going to make the right choices. The second one is about transparency, because if they have to make those choices, they need to know what's going on. They need to know how the organization is going, what are the numbers, who are the customers. Everything needs to be transparent. At least that's how we feel it should be. And like that, they can make better decisions. The third point is about wholeness. We saw the office dog. Some guys play the guitar or whatever, but also some people or some of your colleagues might have problems, and this is important that you bring all of yourself at work. It means that you can share with your colleagues, and whenever there's something wrong, you can speak about it and feel free to talk about it. When you're going to work remotely, as you're doing now, if you can't express your feelings and how you feel today, what you aspire for, what are your problems, it's going to make it much more difficult to work, because you're going to be swollen into those issues instead of being empowered by just being able to share it and get over it so that you can go back to work. So wholeness is also very, very important. It's also a way to share your talents. So again, the guitar or something else, sometimes you can bring something else to the table than just your basic skills. And the last thing, empowerment. In order to work best together remotely, everyone needs to be able to take decisions and to feel empowered. If for every little decision they have to take, in fact, they need to rely on their boss or the boss's boss, it's going to be very difficult to reach any goals. So in order to make it work, the colleagues need to be empowered. So that's a bit how we work at Digiteal and why we have adopted these sets of values. The next part is about tools. So we use different tools, as you can see here. I'm glad that Toon and Peter were able to also introduce some of them. We are on the other side of the spectrum. I don't really like to play partisan base, but we are more a Google team than a Microsoft team, as you're going to see. And so the first set of tools that we're using are linked to our Scrum methodology. We start the day, at least the day together, at 9:30 by a whereby meeting. We have the paid version. Toon said it's not free after 4. It's true, but it's 99 euros per year. So I think it might be something worth considering. We also tried Jitsi. It's also working very good. So that's the first part. And this allows us to explain what we're doing for the moment, what we did yesterday, what we're going to do today, and if there are any blocking issues. But that's just the Scrum methodology, but we can very well do this remotely. The second tool that we're using, Toon also talked about it, it's Trello, and we use it as an idea board. So the ideas go there, they go through a series of steps, and once they're ready to be implemented, we track them into our Jira. So Jira is the next tool that we're using to do project management and support our ticketing to help our customers. Next thing that we're doing is for sprint review and sprint planning, using the same tools, whereby for the teleconferencing, Trello to see what are the ideas that are ready to be taken in this next sprint, and Jira to organize them and work on them. Then we do retrospectives. I was very interested in seeing what Toon said also about Miro, because we usually use post-its, and remotely it's going to be harder to really manipulate those post-its and not being in the same room. So yeah, we're going to try that, or we're also going to try using a document, a shared document that everyone will be able to edit. So a Google Doc, and of course conferencing at the same time. So those are the tools we use for Scrum. Then a big part of our work is doing development, so IT development. And for that, we have an on-premise server. So this on-premise server is what we call the forge. It's forging our software. In order to access this, we use a VPN, of course, and this VPN is provided by our Synology disk station. Very easy to set up like that. You can access those servers. Once we have access to those servers, we use on those GitLab to do the versioning, Jenkins for continuous integration, Artifactory to keep track of all the versions of the software that we delivered. So those are the tools that we have there. The reason to have them on premises is because, well, it's very resource consuming to have those tools. And so if we would be running them in the cloud, knowing the cost of running large machines in the cloud, it wouldn't be very effective for us. So we have those servers on premises, and it's working very well for us. It reduces our cost. Another reason for us to do that is because those resources do not need to be online all the time. They're not used for the runtime of our web application or a mobile application. So if they would be to fail, it's not really a big issue. It's just the development that is a bit annoyed that's anyway going to fix it because they want to continue working. And so that's why we also chose to have them on premises.
Okay.
Not that it fails often, but
we have about 40
it still can happen because there's no duplication of those services at our side, at least. Now, for the runtime, they're much more important to have it on 24/7. And for that, we use the Amazon Web Services. The instances that we have are located in Frankfurt, of course, in the European region. And we also use other cloud services for extra features that are not provided by Amazon. So you see development tools on premises and the rest, all the runtime in the cloud to be up and running all the time. Finally, we have the collaboration tools. We already talked a bit about those. We use the Google Suite for mail, calendar, documents, everything. So as I said, not the Microsoft one for this. And we use Zoho as CRM, as it was one of them that was introduced by Toon already. Now, as a conclusion, I would like to point three things. The first thing is that in order to work remotely, as I said, trust is very important. That's where it starts. You need to have this trust in your teams and in your colleagues. The second point is about the clear objectives for everyone. Well, Peter talked about SMART. It's, I think, the same point here. Everyone needs to know what they need to do, and they need to be empowered to make those decisions and achieve those objectives. And the final thing about the tools, well, we all have specific needs. And so for those specific needs, we have specific tools. But there are two things that are common, I think, for everyone, and especially important now that we're working remotely. The first one is that you must ask yourself, does this tool enable collaborative working? Are you going to be able to share things with this tool? Are your colleagues going to be able to see what's going on? Are you going to be able to work together within the tool? All of that is very important now because you're not in the same office and you need to have a way to share what's going on in those tools. And the second thing, also very important, I think, in these specific times, is to ask yourself, does this tool scale? What about the pricing? We talked about whereby stopping at 4 users. Well, of course, you might need more than that. So if there are limitations, what are they? What's the price? And is this price going to evolve well when your team scales and your needs scale for those software? And finally, if it doesn't scale, well, then what's the cost to switch? Because that's the other option then you have. And if it's not really complicated to make the switch, then why not invest a little bit in a tool, even if you might need something else later on? So I think that was what I wanted to show you, and I'm glad if you have some questions to be able to answer them.
I'll fire up a first one, but I wanted to interrupt you earlier, and I forgot you didn't put the headpiece in, so you couldn't hear my interruption. So that's another thing we learned on in the echo chamber of an online webinar. So just a message for everybody who's tuned in. Is about 40 of you now that we do have a poll section where you can answer which tools you're already using. So that's a nice idea to see how others are using the same tools. But of course, it's flattening out over everybody. You can select more than one tool. A question question, maybe a first one that I'm very curious about. What was the knowledge of the national bank when they audited you from a technical perspective? Did you get questions about whether you run in the cloud, where your on-premise servers are? Like, how technical were they? How did you feel about that, Cédric?
Yeah, so the national bank doesn't really have a big technical team.
Okay.
That's not really their expertise. They have a lot of qualities, but that's not really one of them.
Okay.
But they asked questions about cloud services because it's a concern for them. It's a concern about security, privacy, making sure that all those data are not going to the United States, for example. So these are usual concerns that they have, like you would have for any privacy-related information. But otherwise, we need for the national bank to have internal audit of our IT security. And so they rely on those reports, and those reports are provided to the BNB so that they can see if we really manage well, what are the security issues that our internal auditors or external auditors or experts brought up. And so that's how they get a sense of how secure it is.
Okay, so it's about documenting your internal process, either doing it all by yourself or hiring externals and pay for that yourself, right? That's how I understand it.
Not only, it's also about doing intrusion tests and really hackers that will try to get into your system and documenting what they did. So yeah, experts to try to hack in.
Okay, very nice. Thanks for explaining that part. Maybe Peter, can you explain to us how do you cope with the fact that we no longer have pitches and customer meetings where you can read the room and when you do your pitch, and you're in a service business? So how does your organization, the Glue, cope with this? That in order to get for the last 2 weeks, everything has been, I would say, heavily disrupted. How do you continue those consulting projects?
Well, that's very, it's a very interesting question because it really goes to the core of, our mission right now. And I think one part of the answer definitely is, first thing we have to do is to realize that this situation is not unique to us. It's not just, we have to quarantine the Glue. Everybody's quarantined. So I'm right now touching wood. I can say that so far the impact has been relatively limited because we can't go to meetings, not just because it's our fault, because everybody has to stay at home. So a big part of the continuation has been the fact that some of our clients are less technically inclined than us. And we have taken on a responsibility to help them not only in the project that we're doing, but also helping them doing this remote thing together. So as I told you, the master of ceremony aspect, it wasn't something we knew a priori. It was something we found out when during a call. It was just 30 minutes of trying to get things going, and afterwards it was a very fun conversation. We didn't get a lot done work-wise, but the relationship with our client improved because we helped him become more remote-minded, and it helped him with the rest of his team as well. So I think part one of the answer is we just found out everybody's in the same boat, so everybody's making an effort to continue business as usual. The second part, I think, and there I have to be realistic, is we do feel that service-wise, the visual component, the live component, is traditionally very important. So we have one client who we were in a proposal stage with, who said, look, I don't think we're going to get any contracts signed remotely because it's simply not the way we have done things. So let's check back in a couple of weeks. So that's not fun to hear, but I think it's a reality that everybody, also here in attendance, I think has to face, that there is a traditional role of, looking somebody in the eye, signing something real live and handing it over, that is just not going to go away, no matter as much as we want to. And I think rather than trying to, stubbornly change the way clients see this, we will have to accept it and work around it. Thirdly, however, I want to end on a positive note. What I do see, and I'd love to open this up to the floor to see if they agree with me or not, is that the Glue is a services company, but we are we provide services on the more innovative end of the IT spectrum. And mostly we're seen as, let's say, an essential, but also nice to have item. Innovation is always there in that gray area. But now that Corona is causing, a worldwide uncertainty, we feel that the opportunity cost of these kind of projects has gone down. Because if business as usual is, running full head of steam, then investing in something innovative or, daring to think about transformation is always a risk, because you risk disturbing the business as usual. But now that business as usual is also kind of uncertain, we feel like the interest is actually revitalized. So it goes like the adage, you never waste a good crisis. There's always opportunity to be found, but we'll definitely have to rework our communication and our way of approaching this new age.
Okay, I'm going to first pass the word to Cédric there.
Yeah,
and invite everybody who's on the chat to ask your questions either in the chat or in the question tab, whichever one you have access to and works the best. I'll keep an eye on both of them. I'm not 100% sure that all of you can ask questions, but I know that all of you can post your question in the chat. So please use that as a communication means to make this interactive. And so, yeah, Cédric, what is your reaction to Peter's statements?
Yeah, there's another very big advantage to remote work concerning the meetings with the sales prospects. We have a lot of prospects abroad, and it's always easier to now tell them, okay, we're going to do a remote conference. And of course, they understand because they're doing remote conferences with their neighbors. And here we're doing it from Belgium, but it doesn't change anything for them. So that's also a great advantage. So for example, some customers told me this morning that, they're in Luxembourg, and well, teleconference is the way to go anyway. So they're glad to meet us and to continue working with us this way.
But that's for existing ones that have met you before. And I think that's what Peter was pointing to. It is going to be hard to convince people fully remote to work with you. That's what I understood from Peter's statement. It works for the existing one, the leads you've met, maybe the prospects that know you, but it's harder to get this confirmation through a full online channel. But I don't, Peter, did I correctly understand that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So, and even existing clients that are more traditional, I'm not going to name any names, but some of our clients are pretty big, well-settled banks and insurers, and some of them just simply have those traditional processes in place, and they're not going to go fully digital or remote overnight. So it will take time.
Okay, we have two formal questions. We have Xavier Corman, who chipped in with a comment on the NBB and the FSMA, so the oversight, the regulatory oversight authorities that are have always been pushing for these business continuity plans. So he hopes that from what I understand there, that it's clear that the fintechs probably have this maybe in some respects better in order than many of the incumbents. That's the feedback I get from my dear customers in banking, that over the years, the employees of those banks, they all wanted to work from home, but they often got the excuse, that we can't, it's not secure, privacy-wise, it's a mainframe, we can't extend it to your bedroom. But now, over the last 2 weeks, surprisingly fast, it turns out that they can. And so the whole Corona crisis will create, I think, a huge opportunity also in the way that the classic financial players are organized. So you were hinting at this being an opportunity for many organizations to reinvent themselves. I think it has happened almost overnight. And luckily, they were prepared. They had to scale things up much faster than any plan probably had foreseen. But from what I hear, and putting my ear to the ground, that my customers in banking, they did manage for most of the systems to go there. The one they're struggling with now is the government that has announced all these new measures, which are really impacting them, like delaying capital payments and interest, which the systems, the mainframe legacy systems, have never foreseen to do. And so I think that we as startup entrepreneurs, we're used to being agile in changing something. But next week is going to be like an incredible test. And please, people who work in banking, do express your point of view on that. I'm at this point, I'm very happy I do not work in a bank, IT department, where I'm being asked on Friday, hey, next week, you need to change all our calculations on the monthly interest and capital reimbursements. And by the way, as of April 1st, there's a new law that's going to change everything. Because that's part of the problem. The law needs to change to facilitate these ongoing contracts. What would be your advice to these bankers that get this request on their plate?
I think that they must already have ways to suspend capital payment. I don't think that's something really new. The scale is new because
no, I will interrupt you there. What is new is that they had them for the interest payments. They were used to delay the payments. But what I hear from several of them, the delaying in capital reimbursements was not something that is foreseen in their core systems. And they're looking at it. How can we do this in the short term? But it's, yeah, as you can imagine, it's their core business. It's baked into everything. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how quickly they manage to do the agile approach, which everybody has been embracing for years now, and how they can deliver on that to really help the economy. It's going to be crucial in the next few weeks.
I want to maybe,
Peter,
I want to maybe just add one small thing, because I see there have been some extra questions posed.
Absolutely.
But I think we really do not would do well not to underestimate both insurers and banks in this respect. Yeah. Yes, they will have to do huge challenges, but from my personal experience with the companies I ran working with banks, is that mostly it's not the ability of the IT teams or the people working there to do it that stops them from making big changes, but it is often the very secure and risk-averse decision-making process that precedes it. And again, that's not because there is ill will or people don't want to change, but they want to change, but they want to make sure every box is checked and risks have to be evaluated by different people. And this black swan event, that is the Corona crisis, might really fast track a lot of these decisions. So I think if you see some of the banks here who have hundreds or maybe thousands of people working in IT, if they are all mobilized and if all the top management is aligned on, oh yeah, this should be done because this big outsized force is demanding it, I think this might just be a very, very big influencer for positive change in banking as well. It will hurt, obviously. I think that's my 5 cents. But I think we can't better not underestimate the speed at which they can do it once they are aligned.
Okay, Cédric, you want to add something on that?
It's true that the finance work is very risk averse. That's not new. Yeah, it's forcing changes, and most of those changes are good. So I think that we'll end up with a lot more IT, a lot more remote work after Corona, and that's, I think, going to be very helpful for all of us.
That's one of the comments I read here from Gwenelle Monteux. She's saying, yeah, this is a mandatory change, and nobody opted in for this to stay at home for these lengthy days and weeks. But yeah, it's not that simple for most of them to organize the team settings they used to have and the hours they used to have in a full remote way. So we are all very well aware how stressing this is, and for many of us, even the ones that came in prepared, I hear that the productivity loss is significant because it's a new scheme. We need to adapt. We need to adapt our homes. We need to adapt the way we live in our families, the agreements we make around that. So that's I think that's the part with the tooling, because we invited people in this session to learn about tools, but it's probably even more important to get the right culture and attitudes about those. I mean, the tools are there, and you just pick one and use it, but getting the right attitude in your company around them is probably the hardest thing to acquire. That's not a matter of a 90 euro tool a month or a year. So that's the hard part. Do you have any actionable advice on that for those who've been there for a while?
I have one tip that worked for me very well, and I think this falls into the category of kicking in an open door. But what really helped me to one, avoid distraction and to keep productivity high is to keep the daily rhythm as equal to before as possible. Okay. To get up at a reasonable hour, as early as you would normally, to get dressed. I'm guilty. The first couple of days I was, in my pajamas or in my bathrobe, and it's nice. It feels like a holiday. But after a while, you really feel like a loser, or like, this doesn't feel right. And just get some normal clothes on, have breakfast at a regular time. You can complete the picture. If you have kids, which I don't yet, I heard other stories, so I cannot give an opinion on that. I can imagine that with kids it's 100 times more difficult. if you don't yet, I think staying in the same rhythm is a good way of keeping being productive. And as for people working alone or people having to manage a team remotely, I think the answer there can be in the tools also. You can sometimes use WhatsApp or just give a call instead of doing a teleconference via a formal chat. I know now that at the Glue, a lot of people are also using House Party, which is an app now that's absolutely skyrocketing. For them, let's say the crisis has been a big gift because it's exploding in the app stores. So I think that formal informal dichotomy you can also explore to keep things light. And then maybe to finish off with one example of somebody with kids. And my brother has 3 kids already, and he says that not trying to be a teacher too much is really helpful as well, because he sees a lot of parents who go into teacher mode. Say like, oh no, my kids are home, I have to give them homework, I have to keep them busy. He says, look, give them just enough structure to get through the day, 1 or 2 tasks, and ask them to do to in a calm way try to take care of themselves. And that balance between structure and play for him was the right answer as well.
It sounds much easier. I think for the ones that have small children, that the magic recipe is not as actionable.
Absolutely. And I see a very good comment from Patricia also in the chat that it's absolutely about supporting teams and people in their specific situation. Because at work everybody is kind of equal, but in the home you don't know what the story is at home.
Yeah, so that's like the basic piece of advice. If a child runs in a webinar video call, if a pet takes the attention of the keyboard, it's okay. Yeah, we're all going to get used to this. This is not unprofessional behavior. This is things you have to let go of the fear of like, oh my God, what will people think about this? Yeah, there's going to be a few embarrassing scenes happening in the corporate video calls, but that's going to be part of it. We'll all live through it.
There's a lot more value in humor in these times than in strictness or trying to control people. So
yeah, absolutely. We all fully agree, and not to that. I know many people on the other side of this webinar will agree with that too. Cédric, did you have any weird interruptions over the last with your team or in a larger setting where you say, oops, sorry, everybody, I need to go out, or I'm being called, or something that you did not foresee?
I was organizing a webinar yesterday.
Yes.
And during the webinar, well, I was the presenter, and during the webinar, I had my daughter that was knocking on the door. Yeah. So I just said, okay, I'll take a minute to just to answer, and everyone understand there's really no problem. The embarrassment just comes from the person that is embarrassed herself. If you just know that it's normal and that you answer normally, there's really no problem. We were already doing a remote work 2 or 3 days per week in our company. So this was really not new to us. What's new is that we're doing it 5 days instead of 2 or 3. So that's the difference. I'm the happy father of 4 children. So yeah, it can be challenging to manage that. But of course, well, there's also a lot of help out there, and so that's good. But so no, it's not. No improper or problematic things.
I would say to the people listening in, please do ask your questions via the chat. We see them, and if there's no other questions, I will start showing I would say the slides with a call to action for our next session, because I found this one very insightful. And you must also know that after this session is being wrapped up and just pushed into YouTube, so you can share it with other people too. Next Friday we have another one coming up. So and while I'm trying to win some time here and look at Xavier's comment here. Belfius apparently announced they're moving everything to the cloud now, and at least 3 other Belgian banks took the same decision. So this cloud fear that we've seen for years, and this on-premise almost religiously clinging onto the way it was before, is being loosened. And I must say, many of us who are running their own startups and fintechs in the cloud, we've always had a tough time to understand why, and now we see that they just to face this new reality, they have to make that strategic choice. So maybe, Peter, you wants to comment on that one?
Yeah, just about the cloud comment from Xavier. I think it's very smart of Belfius and of the other banks, because there are rumors of maybe a bigger recession coming. The last year, the yield curve of the treasuries have inverted. That only happened prior to the last crisis. And I think going into the cloud is a very good way to increase their way of being agile. As I understood, Xavier, they're doing it, as some kind of a parallel, like a ghost of their normal core, so they can transition or migrate in parts. But I think the ones who are ready when the crisis hits, if the crisis hits, will be the ones who make it, and not the ones who start when the crisis hits. So it's a smart move.
I think that's a great comment to end this session on. And we also want to be respectful for everybody's time. So we're going to try to keep this in the 1 hour format. Right now, you see the slide with a call to action for next Thursday at 2 p.m. Again, we have a session on low code. So this is the whole movement, low code and zero code, where non-coders can actually build proof of concepts, prototypes, MVPs that are actually looking great and are even interactive. And this is something people working from home without direct access to the usual interface designers and tech teams can better prepare their work and hand it over. And then the Friday at 2 o'clock, we'll have the session, a webinar on cybersecurity. And again, we invite all of you, if you like these formats, to chip in for those. This was our last free one, unfortunately. As an organization, we're trying to also become more resilient to the crisis and find what we usually did in offline conferences and move that now into the online ones. So I really want to thank both of our speakers for the great presentations they've given us. And I will move back to the home screen to see if there's one last question we can answer to everybody now. So please, final comment maybe from you first, Cédric?
Yeah, I think that what is important, what we said today is really, there are a lot of tools. You need to choose wisely, but mostly look at what's relevant for you and get advices from, people around you, because we're all facing the same things, and it's good to align on some specific tools that we can use together. So yeah, don't hesitate to ask.
Putting on a fantastic background noise of a hot pot of water.
Yeah, I hear it too. I don't know.
Somebody is getting fresh tea in a minute. We'll miss out for that one, but we're stopping on the high end of that pitched tone. So Peter, you get the last word, and then somebody gets a nice cup of tea or coffee.
Well, I think everything has been said. Thanks for your attention. Stay strong and stay safe, everybody.
That's the main message. So thanks for being here. Stay safe. Take good care of yourself and each other, all the loved ones around you. And we hope to see you next week. All the best to you all. Bye-bye.